if you look at that flap, there's a number 2. See the number 2? It's on that kind of waffly section of that flap. That is the auricle. If I looked at a real heart, the atria sit on top of the heart like a balloon with no air. And then when they fill up, then you can see them large. But normally, if I take the heart out, all the blood comes out, and they just look like balloons with no air. The ventricles have an actual space because those walls are more muscular.
What did you say it was called?
Oh, auricle, A-U-R-I-C-L-E. Okay, A-U-R-I-C-L-E. What it does is that's where it allows the atria to expand, okay? So blood comes into the right atrium. If we look at the right atrium, if you look inside, there's a little depression with the number 55 on it.
Can you bring
And
that
if
over
you go
here?
to page 14, you'll see it under number 4. That little depression, number 55, is the fossa ovalis. Okay, it's the fossa ovalis. Fossa means depression. Ovalis means it's kind of oval shaped. Understand this. When we look at the fetus inside of mama, we look at the fetus, it doesn't breathe, it doesn't get oxygen. It gets its oxygen from the placenta, from mama breathing. So I don't need blood to go to the lungs. So what happens is, when the blood comes up to the right atria, in a fetus, there's a hole there with a little flap. And 85% of the blood goes from the right atrium directly over to the left atrium, down to the left ventricle, and out to the fetal body. 15% comes in the right atrium, drops to the right ventricle, and goes out like if it was going to the lungs, but then it's going to squirt back up. Look right here. There's a number 10 right here. That little white structure right here. That is the ductus let me rephrase. In the fetus, it's a ductus arteriosus. In you, it's the ligamentum arteriosum. Here's what happens. The baby's head comes out. Fetal head comes out. The baby's being born. The head comes out. It flips over on its back, and it goes, oh, where am I? And when it goes, oh, that pressure changes, and that hole in the atrium closes. The ductus arteriosus closes. Now, it doesn't necessarily always close permanently right then. Sometimes it'll open up a little bit and then it'll close. Eventually it closes completely. So all babies are born with a hole in their heart. It closes. If it's not closed, we can increase the oxygen and sometimes that'll close it. Every once in a while, especially in a preemie, that hole may not close and we just let the baby get bigger and they'll go in and surgically close it. Okay? So if we look at the right atrium, open up the flap and see the little streaks inside that flap? Looks like somebody took a rake or a comb and combed it through there. Those are the pectinate muscles.
Can you bring that over
Now,
here?
the atria don't squeeze all the blood. 70% of the blood drops out of the atria, and the atria only squeezes the last 30% out. That's why that's not a real big muscle. But that's the pectinate muscle. So we looked at the atrium, we looked at the auricle, we looked at the fossa ovalis, and pectinate muscle, yeah, that covered all. So see that little white valve going between the right atrium and the right ventricle? Little plastic valve. Bingo. Right. You got it. Number 35. Look in there, you'll see number 35. Got it? No.
What did you say that was?
35. Oh,
He hasn't said yet.
yeah.
Okay? All right. You got it? Damn it.
A little basketball.
No. Just that. Okay. You got it over here, guys? Yes. Okay. That is, listen to me, it is called the right AV valve, the right atrioventricular valve, or it's called the tricuspid valve. It's called the tricuspid valve because it has 3 little flaps that close. If you look at that, do you see the 3 little tails it has? that tells you that it has three little cusps that are going to close. So we call it the tricuspid valve or the right atrioventricular valve, the right AV valve. The blood drops into the right AV valve through that AV valve. Now see the little basketball net coming off of that valve? That little basketball net looking thing is called the chordae tendineae, the heartstrings. All right? Everybody see them? You got them? So that basketball net looking thing is the chordae tendineae. If you follow the basketball looking thing down, it goes to a little red piece. I think it has like a number 42 on it. Those are called papillary muscles. Now, valves are there to make the blood go in one direction. I don't want the blood to go back up in the atrium. I want the blood to go from the atria down into the ventricles. So when those valves are open, the blood just drops into the ventricle. Yeah, that's what valves do. They make blood go in one direction. If you don't remember it, write it down. Valves make blood go in one direction. So the blood drops through that right AV valve into the ventricle. And those papillary muscles, because the valve, when the ventricles are going to squeeze, that valve has to close. It's a lot of pressure. I don't want them to turn inside out and let blood go back up into the atrium. So what happens is the papillary muscle starts contracting, holding on to that valve so it doesn't turn inside out. Okay, that's what the papillary muscle does. If I look at a real heart, at a preserved heart, there's a little structure that cuts across. It's called the moderator band. And that moderator band goes across and tells the anterior papillary, hold on, we're going to contract. And it lets all the other papillary muscles know to hold on so that valve doesn't turn inside out. The interesting thing is that 42% of the population in prison can actually feel the pectinate muscle holding on so that that valve doesn't turn inside out. One of the thoughts was that the reason 42% of the population can feel it is they're sitting in prison, they got nothing else to do. We're usually as you get older, ridges. When we looked at spongy bone, we had some structures look just like that. What did we call it? Yes.
Trabeculae.
Called it trabeculae. Well, this is trabeculae not in bone, it's in meat. So this we call the trabeculae carnate. All right? Those ridges in the ventricles are called the trabeculae carnate. Everybody got it? Remember, trabeculae allow it to take stress in several different directions. Because the heart is squeezing like this and squeezing like this. So it's taking that stress in several different directions. When the right ventricle squeezes, the blood is going to leave the right ventricle on its way to the lungs to get oxygen. If you look, right there, look for number 37.
Looks like teeth. Which number is
Okay, so you find the look at that valve right there. This valve. That valve, some places you'll just see it called the semilunar valve. The only problem with that is you've got two semilunar valves, and if all you say is semilunar valve, I don't know which one you're talking about. So the correct name for it is the pulmonary semilunar valve, because that blood is going to the lungs. Okay? In Spanish, lungs are pulmones, so that's the pulmonary on its way to the lungs. Now, I told you that all blood vessels carrying blood away from the heart are called the arteries. This is a gotcha. I'm going to say, name this structure, and you're going to look at it, and it's blue, and you're going to say, it's a vein. No, it's not. This is the only artery in your body that carries deoxygenated blood. Goes up into the pulmonary trunk. Follow it. You'll see blue ones coming out on each side. That's the pulmonary arteries. Here's your left pulmonary artery. Right pulmonary artery. Left pulmonary artery. Right pulmonary artery. Left, right. Okay? Got it? You got it? Got it?